Joining us now is Democratic Senator from Nevada, Catherine Cortez Masto, a member of the Finance Committee. Senator, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know that it has been an incredibly busy 24 hours for you. I want to start with your response to what you just heard there from Speaker Johnson.
Well, Speaker Johnson knows this. He's smarter than as he's portraying there. He's watched us in the Senate. His proposal is just dead on arrival. It's not going to happen here. We've gone through all of the iterations in the Senate, from continuing resolutions to adding the Save America Act, which has nothing to do with appropriations and funding. We passed out of the Senate early this morning by unanimous consent, not by a vote of 60 or more, by unanimous consent. That means every senator agreed to pass this. And what did we do? What we basically said is, what we have been saying all along, what I've been saying all along, let's pay the TSA workers. The appropriations are already done. Let's pay them. Let's pay FEMA. Let's pay the Secret Service. Let's pay the Coast Guard. Let's pay CISA. Excuse me. And then when it comes to DHS and Border Patrol, we're not going to give you any more money for that unless you do the reforms. So let's separate the two of them, uncouple them. Let's pay that. Let's get those workers paid so they are not political pawns, and we can still have this conversation in the future on DHS along with Border Patrol. That's really what it comes down to. And it's unfortunate that as I'm listening to this, the Speaker continues to want to play political games and not speak the truth, because the truth is this. This president sent those ICE agents into our airports to work side by side with those TSA workers. You know the federal workers there at those airports who are not getting paid, TSA workers. You know who's still getting paid? ICE. Because in the big, beautiful bill, the Republicans passed and gave ICE and CBP $170 billion. Their normal annual budget is $8 to $10 billion. So they have money. And this is the point. This is what we're saying is, if you're going to send out immigration enforcement in this country in an abusive manner, which we have seen across this country, from Los Angeles to Chicago to Minneapolis, abuse citizens' rights, kill people, then we are going to hold you accountable for reforms. And you know what the reforms we're asking? No different than every law enforcement agency across this country already complies with, from our local law enforcement to state law enforcement. I was Attorney General for 8 years. I know. I worked side by side with them. These are common sense reforms, keep our community safe, protect the constitutional rights of citizens, continue that kind of social contract of trust with the community, and we keep them safe because, by the way, these are taxpayer dollars that these federal workers are using, these ICE agents. So this is just common sense, and I can't stress this enough. What the Speaker is talking about is dead on arrival in the Senate. So let's get back to a time, let's pay our workers, let's have a separate conversation about ICE and CBP and the reforms that are necessary, but stop using these federal workers as political pawns.
To your point, you know, we have been around this block before. It's dead on arrival, and in a way, this is a conversation we've had repeatedly over the last 40 or so days. I have to say, though, you know, for a TSA worker listening to the Speaker there, or who's watched the president in the last few days say that he's going to be able to find this unilateral mechanism to pay them anyway, talking to the Office of Management and Budget to try to figure out what this looks like, you know, they may feel a sense of relief from hearing that the president is going to take action like that. Do you know if he can actually legally get that done? Is that something they can count on?
The point is this. Let me just say this, Katie. The point is, we are the appropriators. We have already negotiated TSA's budget in an appropriation, and all we have to do is pass it. So you want to do it legally, Mr. President and the Speaker, then pass this appropriation and fund it and quit playing games with them. That's the easiest thing. The Senate's already done its job. We passed it out early this morning. These workers, the appropriation's done. Now the House needs to do its job, and the president needs to sign it. And stop playing games. This is the problem and the frustration I think so many people have in this country, include our workers who are political pawns. They see Congress, they see this administration playing political games. I was in the negotiations on these reforms. Every time we worked together to get somewhere, the president interjected and changed the terms of the negotiation. He added the SAVE Act to it, right? He added transgender sports to it. When we were in the middle of negotiating, then he decided he's going to send TSA agents into the airports. He kept changing the terms of it, making very difficult, quite honestly, for some of our Republican colleagues who were in the room with us to finalize some of these reforms. So here's where we are today in the Senate. And it's an example of the Senate finally doing its job, coming together. And I want to stress again, it was by unanimous consent. What does that mean? One senator in the Senate could have objected to this and stopped it, and they did not.
You mentioned it briefly there, but something that I've been surprised that more people aren't talking about, calling out more consistently over the last few days, is the extent to which the president has linked the fate of TSA workers and their ability to put food on their tables with ICE and the SAVE Act, which, for anyone at home wondering what the SAVE Act is, it's been described as the voter ID bill. But the reality is it goes far beyond, presenting your license at a voting location. It really is a sort of show your citizenship papers in order to vote bill. Why do you think the president seems so focused on tying the fate of those two seemingly unrelated things together?
Because his current policies in this country are just harming Americans. Americans are suffering right now because of his policies. They can't afford groceries. I know in Nevada, individuals in my state are paying $300 a month year over year for their groceries. Fuel prices are rising. Energy prices are rising. You can't afford a home. A lot of the policies, because of this administration, his blanket tariffs, his rhetoric with Canada and other countries is having a depressing effect even on our international tourism and tourism in this country. People feel this crunch. They're not going to spend money if they don't think that they can afford putting grocery or paying their bills. It is the policies of this administration that is not addressing the affordability crisis. The president knows that. He knows he's going into a midterm. He hasn't addressed that issue for Americans, and he's concerned he's going to lose the midterm and Republicans will lose both control of the House and the Senate.
So if Johnson continues to dig in here, realistically, what more might Senate Democrats be willing to bend on, to offer, or are we just going to keep kind of having Groundhog Day on this issue day in and day out?
We've done our job in the Senate. We have actually said this is the path forward in a unanimous way. We fund TSA, we fund FEMA, we fund Coast Guard, we fund CISA and the Secret Service. We don't fund DHS, we don't fund CBP, and we have further conversations with respect to those two agencies and whether or not they're going to comply with the reforms that we think are necessary. Not just we, the American public thinks is necessary for immigration enforcement in their communities. So
you don't think Democrats will budge on any of those reforms?
Listen, we've already spoken. I'm happy to get in a room again with my Republican colleagues, absolutely, and talk about these reforms. I think that's where we should go next. But that doesn't mean we hold up the budgets for TSA and FEMA and those other agencies.
We're, of course, just a day away from the No Kings protests, and I've attended the last few. I know the extent to which immigration enforcement animates the people who come there. I mean, you consistently meet people at these events who say they've never protested in their lives. They may not really identify, actually, in some cases, with a political party, but that they've been so frightened by the scenes in cities like Minneapolis, Chicago, Charlotte, Los Angeles, that they felt compelled to show up. And I have no doubt I'm going to meet more of those people tomorrow. So at this point, even just stepping back from this question of funding, where do you stand on ICE as an agency? Now that you've seen what it has become under this administration, do you think it can be reformed?
Well, let me say a couple of things. One, the reason why I am standing strong not supporting the funding for it right now is because we do need those reforms. And when I'm talking about reforms in the American public, these are reforms that law enforcement agencies, when they come into our communities, have to comply with, like every other law enforcement agency in our states, whether your local police department or your state police department. They follow standards and practices for training, de-escalation, use of force. They know how to utilize it. They're trained in it. They are also trained in our constitutional rights, like the Fourth Amendment. You can't go into somebody's private home unless you have a judicial warrant signed by a judge. Our local law enforcement don't wear masks. Unless there's a unique reason why they have to when they're going into a situation. But when they're policing in our communities, you don't see them wearing masks. They have body cameras. There's procedures and policies for when you use those body cameras and how you retain that video. And quite frankly, how the press has access to that video. And so there's a lot of protocols and that the ICE agents, when they were doing their immigration deportation across the country, were not following. And because of it, because of it, we saw so many abuses right on our television sets, from Chicago to Los Angeles to Minneapolis. And we saw people lose their lives. U.S. citizens were losing their lives. And nobody can forget that. So absolutely we should demand that this deportation force that Donald Trump has created, that they have to follow the same policies that every law enforcement agency does. And that's worth fighting for. That's about our law and order. That's about our country and our future and protecting citizens' rights, along with making sure we're keeping our communities safe. I will say this. I'm also, as the work that I've done in the past in my law enforcement background, yes, I think we should go after violent criminals and hold them accountable. And if they're undocumented immigrants, deport them. That's not what this administration is doing. That's what we're seeing across the country, and rightfully so, Americans are outraged.